Hello, my name's Adam and I work as a Microsoft Certified Trainer and Assessor for Azure.
I'm Jono, I'm a Quality Manager at Visual. So today, Adam, Azure is the hot topic.
That it is.
It is. So talk to me a little bit more about Azure.
Of course, so if you're not familiar with Azure, in a nutshell, it basically allows you to create your own IT environment in the cloud rather than doing it at your local workplace.
Okay. So what would that mean to me as a business?
So to you as a business, usually, or going back many years, many businesses might have their own server room, and they might have their own IT department, and they're completely responsible for managing that, from updates to what happens if there's things like a power outage, and backups and all those common IT tasks that you can probably think of. Now with Azure, it gives you many benefits over that, because if you decide to start using Azure for your IT infrastructure, it provides, well, firstly, Microsoft take at least part of the responsibility from you,
Okay.
and there's some great backup and redundancy features for it, which takes responsibility takes responsibility off you for that.
Okay. So as a user, what would be my benefit to using Azure?
So as a user, if you're an end user, you won't really use it at all, I would have thought. Not commonly. Some end users might in a limited way, but it's more, I would say, for IT staff. It would be more commonly used for IT staff.
Okay.
Why they would use it, as I say, you can host your business critical servers in Azure, you can host your applications in Azure, and you can host all your resources in Azure. As I say, the reason you would want to do that is if you host, let's say you put your virtual machines in Azure, you put your servers in Azure, your apps, Microsoft takes some of the responsibility off you, and the benefit of that is Microsoft provide a number of redundancy features in Azure, and there's things like you have things like Geo-Redundant Storage, you have availability zones, availability sets, and these things can help provide redundancy to your critical infrastructure, which, if it was on premise, you would be 100% responsible for managing.
Just taking a step back, what's on-premise?
On-premise, if I use the term on-premise, that means when you use your IT environment at your workplace. So, for example, Visual server rooms are on-premise, for example, because they're here.
Okay. So any other features that you would say for Azure?
Of course. So Azure has some really powerful features. Firstly, one of the benefits of Azure with its I'm just going to go back to one of the previous questions you asked, but one of the benefits as well is cost management and billing,
Okay.
in the fact that Azure is a pay-as-you-go service. So, for example, when you buy servers for your on-premise environment, typically you might spend £10,000 to £20,000 per server. Can be expensive. I am just making that up, but
Yeah.
they're expensive. With Azure, it's a pay-as-you-go, so you only pay for what you use.
Okay.
And if you don't use it, then you don't pay for it. So it's quite a nice little payment model there.
Okay.
In terms of some of the features of it,
Sorry, can I stop? So
Yeah.
would you say cost-wise,
Yeah.
just a throwaway comment, would you say cost-wise using Azure is more cost-effective than having a server room?
sometimes, and I'm deliberately
Okay.
say sometimes. So sometimes it's a lot cheaper, sometimes it isn't.
Okay.
And there's various tools which, if you have a look up online, like the Azure pricing calculator and the Azure total cost of ownership calculator,
Yeah.
that will allow you to run those tests to see if it is cheaper or not before you go and commit to it.
Okay, and I would say that them features are really good to check before you start to buy
It's a
things.
key part of your planning you'd want to perform.
Okay, perfect. So features, sorry, I know we've...
Yeah, we've gone off complete. So Azure features. So Azure's got some really cool features. As I say, there's the various redundancy options. So when I talk about Geo-Redundant Storage, that means where if you're storing things in Azure storage, like cloud-based file shares, it will replicate your data to another region. So for example, there are 2 Azure regions in the UK South and UK West.
Yeah.
UK is a bit of an exception, but usually you can get Azure to replicate your data at least 300 miles away. So if there's a region-wide outage or a data center outage, you can mitigate against these issues. Whilst at your workplace, if there's a power outage, you're responsible for, sorting it.
Yeah.
Other benefits as well, there's some really cool features in, I'm going to use the term Azure Security Center, although I know it's changed name recently to Microsoft Defender for Cloud.
Okay.
Was a security center, if you're wondering about that. So with Microsoft Defender Cloud, you get things like DDoS protection, which will protect you against distributed denial of service. and that's where an attacker will attempt to overwhelm your network resources and take them down.
Okay.
There's also some very powerful security monitoring features. A real example of this, by the way, was I set up a server in my own test Azure environment, which is AG Learning, and somebody tried to access the VM with 387 different user accounts, and that was back in February this year. All attempts failed because the credentials couldn't authenticate, but the idea is it makes you aware of that, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I need to do something. So stuff like that does happen, and they might access other resources. Azure features itself, or talking about Azure features themselves, there's just some really powerful features, like you can set up servers, you can set up things like host groups, so you can set up your own dedicated host, so you can set up your own dedicated physical servers in Azure. You can set up things like Azure applications, set up and customize your own networks, you can set up your own firewall. There is a massive list, and one thing I'd go off this is I went to Microsoft's headquarters in 2017, and they said there's some new little change to Azure every 36 hours. So to learn Azure in depth, you can spend absolute weeks, and you still probably won't know everything.
Yeah. So that goes on to, so if I was looking for a business, got my IT team, what certifications or what training would you advise or recommend?
So the training I would advise is firstly to start with something like the AZ900, which is the Azure Fundamentals. So that will give you a basic introduction into Azure, like cost management and billing, the different resource you create, servers, different types of VMs, apps, etc. You'll understand pricing and all your little things that you need to know for setting up Azure,
yeah.
Things like blueprints as well. I'd then recommend maybe going on to AZ104, which is an Azure Administrator.
Yeah.
That's a little bit harder and a little bit more challenging. Not the most challenging certification I have, is next step up.
Yeah.
And that'll give you a bit more detail in terms of, I find it's very similar to the AZ900, but it's got a lot more depth to it. So okay. I would say it's a little bit more challenging in the question format in the exam and the detail to the subjects in it.
Okay. And then pass mark for the exam?
Pass marks are always 700 out of 1,000.
Okay.
After that, there are various other certifications you can look up online. There's various security Azure related certifications, and you can start to build your learn path through that.
Okay, perfect. So with Azure, as you said, you've gone through the features, benefits, certifications, and there's quite a lot around Azure. So obviously you give the information to go in there. Is there anything else, any other key points that you would like to mention?
The only things I mention is it's a great service. I think you. Sorry, I'm struggling a bit. So it can really help with your business. One major benefit is it can reduce the workload of your IT staff a bit. Not to say it doesn't eliminate it, because they still need to do things in Azure.
Yeah.
But it does have the potential to reduce it a little bit. And it's also got some really powerful security features as well, which again is really important for a business.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you for that.
No worries. It was great talking.
Cheers.